temples. At Kesigat, he would pass by sadhus sitting alone here and there, facing the Yamuna. The river itself was little trafficked. Sometime a boat or two slowly moving on the river's placidity. Sometimes a fish splashed in the water, or a bird winged along the river, watchful. Casey Ghat was quiet and beautiful, especially after the sun had relented for the day. Sadhus would hail Abhay on sight with Vrindavan's common greeting, Jai Radhe, and Abhay would return his Hare Krishna. So now we will continue reading. When in the evening he walked through town, he would find himself amidst the vibration of one kirtan after another. In the temples of Krishna, Ram, Chaitanya, Narsimha or Shiva, in ashrama halls, in homes, even amongst a group walking on the street, there would be kirtan. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. He would often see Bengali widows gather together in a hall. Thousands of them lived in ashram in Vrindavan, staying together with few months, wearing dull white saris, keeping their hair cut short, never leaving Vrindavan, even for Mathura, wanting only to stay in Vrindavan, to die in Vrindavan, chanting Hare Krishna. A man would sit playing mridanga and leading a chant, while a group of widows clapped their hands unevenly, responding in their childlike voices. The drum, the clapping, the singers, unpolished but earnest, made a sweet sound in the evening. As Abhay walked, no sooner would the sound of one kirtan fade than another would rise loudly before him, and then fade behind him as another rose to meet him. A temple bell ringing formidably, intermingling with the drums, cymbals, and chorus of another group, or a single person passing nearby, singing his own Radhe Radhe. Even the greetings were kirtan, Jai Radhe Haribol, as faces passed, as carts clattered by, as men joked or made their last transactions of the day in the market, and as stray cows made their way home, their bells clanging around their necks. Somehow, everything was in a connection with Krishna. And as Abhay returned to the secluded Vansi Gopalji temple, there also he would hear kirtans, only more private, perhaps only a husband and a wife in the room. The man playing mridanga and singing one line of a bhajan, and his wife singing in response. Vrindavan was not ordinary. Every singer sounded sweet in his own way, an expert melodist, and everyone sang of Krishna. Krishna was present in every occasion and event. Srila Prabhupada described in his own words, the glories of Krishna nobody can understand. Similarly, Vrindavan, the land which is known as Vrindavan, also has unlimited potency. When you go to Vrindavan, you will find unlimited potency of spiritual atmosphere. Still, if you go to Vrindavan, you will see so many saints and sages. Still, they are worshipping Vrindavan Dham. As Lord Krishna is worshipable, similarly his place, Vrindavan, is as good as Krishna. It is also worshipable. Commuting became difficult. He would take the morning train into Delhi and, having nowhere to stay, return to Vrindavan the same night. That didn't give him much time in Delhi, and it was expensive. At first, he had stayed with Mr. Gupta, a pious gentleman who studied the Gita regularly and afforded sadhus a place to stay. Abhay explains to Mr. Gupta about his back to Godhead and his desire to preach in the West. It had been a good arrangement, and Abhay had kept to himself writing. But in some time another, Sadhu took the room. Even with his minimal personal expense, it was difficult to raise enough in donation to cover traveling, printing, and mailing. Giving copies to the Back to Godhead away wasn't difficult, and he was doing that in Vrindavan. But working alone, writing, editing, selling, soliciting donations was too much. The printer, Mr. Jain, was amazed, wondering why a person would put himself through such difficulties. Printing a newspaper he couldn't afford. Srila Prabhupada, in his own words, I worked for Back to Godhead day and night. In the beginning, when I was a householder, I did not care if somebody paid or not paid. I used to distribute liberally. But when I left my household life and I was living alone, sometimes in Vrindavan and sometimes in Delhi, or sometimes traveling for pushing on BTG, they were very hard days. After his 12th consecutive fortnightly edition, the issue for November 20, 1956, Abhay ran out of money. Mr. Jain had to throw up his hands, saying he couldn't print simply out of friendship. Abhay returned to Vrindavan, where he spent his time writing, but with no plan for publication. It was because people weren't interested in becoming Krishna conscious, because they had no time, that Back to Godhead had failed financially. Certain sadhus in India were celebrated and influential, but Abhay was not amongst them. Of course, the uncompromising preaching he had learned from his spiritual master, the chopping technique, in which he openly criticized the revered politicians and holy men, was not likely to win him favor and patronage. Don't flatter, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati has said. Speak the truth, and if Krishna is pleased, then you will come out successful. Money will come, and Abhay had firm faith in the words of his spiritual master. That was his outstanding asset, his faith in his spiritual master. He was sure that by following Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he would receive his blessings and the blessings of the Lord Chaitanya. Although for the last 2 years he had followed any paths that had opened as far as it had led, he had remained one-pointed, aimed at serving the order of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. He was confident sooner or later he would obtain substantial backing. He would find a sympathetic audience. Sincere workers would join him. A letter came to Abhay in Vrindavan from his disciple Acharya Prabhakar Mishra, and it gave Abhay an idea. Acharya Prabhakar, who was in Bombay working as a secretary of the Sanskrit department at the Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan, invited Srila Bhaktivedanta Prabhu to join him there for preaching together. Just as in the old days, the founder director of the Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan was Governor K. Munshi, the same governor whose wife had pressured Abhay to give up the Radha Memorial in Jhansi. But Acharya Prabhakar, having recently established a friendship with the governor, intimated to Abhay that the governor might be willing to help. Thus, in January 1957, after assuring Mahant Gopal that he would return and then he would send 5 rupees a month for his room, Abhay traveled to Bombay. Acharya Prabhakar got Abhay quarters in a faculty residence and introduced him to various scholars and religionists. They then attended a lecture by Governor Munshi. What is wrong with the world? Afterwards, Abhay approached the governor, expressing his appreciation of the speech, but stressing that it would take a spiritual movement to avert the imminent global disasters. Without God consciousness, even Mr. Munshi's work in the Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan would be a waste of time. Abhay spoke of his interest in reviving the League of Devotees, and he suggested how he might work within the Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan to infuse the life of God consciousness into the governor's cultural projects. Governor Munshi responded by offering Abhay a post as honorary professor of Bhagavad Gita. Abhay accepted and gave the governor some copies of Back to Godhead, requesting that he read them in his spare time. As honorary professor of Bhagavad Gita, Abhay began each class with Hare Krishna Kirtan and then lecture on the Gita, presenting Lord Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But he soon found his post confining. Within the Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan, he found a little scope for reviving the League of Devotees. Then, along with other members of the Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan, Abhay attended the 5th annual convention of the World Academy of Sanskrit at Kurukshetra, where 5,000 years before Lord Krishna has spoken Bhagavad Gita. India's President Dr. Rajendra Prasad, Governor Munshi, and many scholars and pandits from all over the India participated in the discourses. But everyone there had his own thing to say, apart from the conclusions of Lord Krishna. So Abhay considered the meeting a waste of time, since he was not scheduled to speak, since the non-devotional discussion on the Gita disturbed him, and since he saw that nothing practical would come out of such a theoretical meeting, he left Kurukshetra and returned to Vrindavan. Haribol. Acharya Prabhakar soon joined Abhay as they talked together in Abhay's room at Vansi Gopalji temple. Abhay spoke again of his desire to revive the League of Devotees. After having recently seen the watered-down cultural programs in Bombay and Kurukshetra, he felt even more keenly the need for a society of pure devotees. There were already so many cultural and religion organizations. If he liked, he could join one. But where was that organization with which he could affiliate himself wholeheartedly? Only the League of Devotees espoused the conclusion of the Lord Chaitanya and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Vigoria's worldwide preaching of devotional service to Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Abhay drafted, quote, an appeal to the generous public, modern philosophers, leaders, and religionists, unquote. On behalf of the League of Devotees, the activities of the League, he stated, would be to publish Back to Godhead in English with translation in many other languages. to educate young men and women for worldwide preaching, and to operate a press solely for printing transcendental literatures. These programs would require an estimated 3,000 rupees per month, and he appealed for help. Abhay concluded, quote, Vrindavan is the sacred place of topmost importance, and the headquarters of this league is therefore situated here, unquote. Using the impressive new title, Honorary Professors of Gita, Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan, and Honorary Secretary of Hari Bhavan, Abhay, with the assistance of Acharya Prabhakar, launched another attempt at rallying support for Back to Godhead and the League of Devotees. Within a few days, Acharya Prabhakar returned to his post in Bombay, and Abhay was again alone in Vrindavan. He loved Vrindavan, yet with no means to publish and preach, he was not content there. If he were to travel, he might be able to enlist members for the league. He thought of Kanpur, which was nearby, a city of more than 100 big factories and many wealthy industrialists, some of whom he had met during his business travels. He decided to go. After printing some League of the Devotees membership forms, he explained to Mahant Gopal that he would be away for a couple of months. The Mahant was surprised. All the most elderly sadhus who came to Vrindavan stayed put, and some even took vow never to leave. This quiet Baba was coming and going constantly. Abhay preached actively in Kanpur, staying in various homes and canvassing for league members. As the guest of the Anandeswar Satsang Mandal, he lectured regularly at the popular Parmat bathing ghat on the Ganga. He especially made acquaintances among industrialists and educators, often sitting and conversing with them for hours. And many were impressed by his dedication and his soft-spoken talks. But his collections were small. When he offered the wealthy magnate his constitutional membership, they usually opted in favor of the 2 rupee a year subscriber membership. He collected a few letters of appreciation, but after 2 months, he left. After some months in Vrindavan, Abhay decided to go back to Bombay and preach. In Bombay, he quickly broke off his association with the stifling Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan and moved out of the faculty residence there. Staying a week at a time in the homes of various patrons, he tried to generate interest in his missionary activities. When a friend of Acharya Prabhakar's arranged for Abhay to address Sunday evening crowd at a Bombay beach, Abhay accepted. Following already established custom, he sat on a cushion, and the people gathered, from 500 to 1,000, sitting and listening, as he loudly spoke the philosophy of Bhagavad Gita. Abhay spoke for several nights, and there were other lecture opportunities also. One week he spoke several times at a Bombay Vishnu temple. But Abhay wanted to do more than deliver occasional lectures to uncommitted audiences. The conviction was growing within him that he should preach outside India. The idea, of course, had been there for some time. He had expressed it in his prospectus for the League of Devotees. Before gathering at the Radha Memorial in Jhansi, during his meeting at the Birla Mandir in Delhi, and on many other occasions. Informally, he had expressed at hundreds of times to acquaintances, and he had woven his dream throughout his writings. He was ready to travel anywhere if he could fulfill Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati order to preach in English. In India, the English-speaking population was small, so we continued to dream of going to the West. If he could travel to Bombay, Delhi and Kanpur, why not to London or New York, where millions spoke English and had never heard the message of Lord Chaitanya? Writing to Mr. Ved Prakash, a Kanpur industrialist, Abhay explained his idea. Lord Chaitanya said, Prominam upakaraya, that is to say, for the benefit of all living beings concerned, while rendering first aid service in the battlefield, the Red Cross men, although equally disposed to all the wounded soldiers, they give first preference to the hopeful ones. The hopeless ones are sometimes neglected. So in India, even after the attainment of Swaraj, the mentality is predominant by made in London ideas. It is a long story. But in a nutshell, the leaders of India, in the name of secular government, they have engaged themselves in the everything foreign. They have carefully set aside the treasure house of India's spiritual asset, and they are imitating the westernized material way of life, constantly engaged in the acts of error of judgment, misgivings, imperfectionistness, and duplicity. India's Vedic knowledge is above all the conditional defects mentioned above, but we Indians at the present moment have neglected such wonderful Vedic knowledge. It is due to its improper handling. This Vedanta Sutra is presented in India by unauthorized persons of different camps, and as such, the people are being misguided. Newly sprung up national enthusiasm of the Indian leaders, industrialists, and plan mark makers has no time, neither desire to understand the message of Vedanta Sutra or even the Bhagavad Gita. You cannot do acts of humanity without proper guidance. So my idea of preaching in the foreign countries means that they are rather fed up with material advancement of knowledge. They are seeking the message guidance of the Vedanta Sutra, or for the matter of the Bhagavad Gita in an authorized way. And I'm sure that India will again go back to the spiritual life when the principle is accepted by the Europeans, Americans, etc. Because the Indian people are now in the habit of begging after neglecting their own property. That was my viewpoint. But all the same, we must take only the opportunity of service. One way of expanding his way of preaching was to mail copies of the Back to Godhead outside India. And as an incentive for enlisting donors, he made it known that the donor's name would be printed on each copy. His ambition was to bring in large donation, run large printings, and send Back to Godhead to more than 50 countries. He assigned quotas. America would receive 10,000 copies, Argentina 5,000, Belgium 500, Brazil 500, Burma 1,000, Canada 500, Chile 500, China 10,000, and so on, including 10,000 for Russia and 10,000 for England. But the donors and donations never appear, and the plan for Back to Godhead were never realized. How much struggle Prabhupada went through, huh? This is a wonderful place to stop. Devotee may have to go to work and we should be punctual. So before they leave, we would like to offer our humble obeisances at the desk of this wonderful Vaishnavas and Vaishnavi, that they take austerity to wake up early in the morning despite so many household responsibilities. So I have a deep respect for them. So let's offer our humble obeisances. Vanchakalpatarubhasya kripa sindhubhaya vacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Thank you very much. Unless anyone has any question, comment, corrections, we will end our session.